Hello, everybody. My name is Professor Richard Sinnott. I'm going to talk to you today around some work that I've been doing for some time now in the area of applied deep learning and different application domains. Just a bit about background about my team, the Melbourne eResearch Group. We have a fairly large team of software engineers covering a range of areas of expertise, from big data to security to cloud computing, etc. I also, part of my role at the university, get to supervise many master's dissertations. I've had over 700 in the last few years, where we've explored a range of different activities, projects, etc., social media analytics, mobile apps, and the like. I've also done quite a lot of projects now in the area of deep learning and convolutional neural networks, which I'll talk about in a little while. Nearly all of the projects that we work on tend to be data focused and also deal with security at their heart. Many people have probably heard a little bit about deep learning and sort of the artificial intelligence, etc. I'd say that this is not a new thing. This has been around for quite a long time now. I've been applying these kinds of ideas, I guess, for over 20 years in part of my job in building software for researchers. Support vector machines, Bayes nets is very common. We've done many things, genetic algorithms, etc., been around for a long time. But there's been a lot of excitement recently in the area of deep learning and applying sort of the ideas behind this for many different application areas, whether it's predicting outcomes of elections or computer chip design through to brand analysis to people like Pepsi or Coke and those kinds of things. There are lots and lots of application areas where people are using data to train models to make predictions. And this is kind of at the heart of what deep learning is about. Just as one example, this is one of the projects we've worked on where we had LiDAR data, which is basically laser kind of data where it's shining lights and recording intensity. And we wanted to identify the electric pylons and the cabling between them to see if trees might fall over and fall down and bring them down in case of a storm, etc. Doing that uses a range of similar ideas and technologies for artificial intelligence to identify this is the cable, this is the pylon, this is a house, this is a tree, etc. The basic idea behind a lot of these deep learning areas right now is what we call convolutional neural networks, CNNs. And if you had to put it down into one simple scenario, there's a lot of these, by the way. There's not just one. There are hundreds now of models which are being produced. Or models, you can think of a model as like an algorithm, where if you train it on identifying, in this case, flowers or a rose, if you take a picture or feed it in an image, it should be able to tell you what it is, or at least identify how confident it is that what you're presenting is what it thinks it is. So in this case, it will take this image, 1,000 of images like this, and variations of roses in different conditions, and then the model will then go through the aspects of the image to identify the shape of the leaves, whether it's got the stems and the thorns, as well as the petals and the colors, etc., to be able to tell you this is a rose, not a tulip or a buttercup or a dog, or etc. In a nutshell, that's the idea behind it. As I mentioned, there are many CNNs available, and there are increasing demands on applying them in different areas, from health to traffic prediction to all kinds of different stuff. So two of the core aspects of when you're applying deep learning are, one of them is typically detection. So for example, is there a cat in the picture? If so, the model's being trained to identify what a cat looks like. It will be able to then identify, yes, there is a cat in the picture and it's here. So that's detection. Another common thing is classification. What kind of cat is it? What species or what breed of cat is it? And so there are many different applications of those technologies for detection and classification. The sort of things I've looked at with my students are very diverse, from what is it that you are about to eat? What's the volume of the thing that you're about to eat? And hence, what's the calorific content? Is this snake poisonous or not? Can I eat this mushroom or not? What cloud is it? What car is it? Is this This is one of the NHMRC funded projects we're involved in right now, for example, which is to do with brittle bones, I guess, where people will break a bone based upon the genetics of their body. I mean, there's a very specific shape to the breaks, which are doctors will be able to identify this and say this person has specific condition, they should be treated in a certain way. But there's lots of different application areas. You can see the sort of scope of application in doing these projects is huge. We've looked at counting fruit and veg, on trees using different models. Work we're doing right now is identifying the size of crowds. And so in this case, this was 800 or so people who were all involved in one of the Avengers movies, and the model was able to identify every one of them based on their face, etc. We're doing the same thing with moving people now, people moving across this, in demonstrations or in soccer matches or things of this. One of the fun apps we built, which seems to have got a lot of traction, it's in the App Store. It's called Happy Pets, which can take a picture of your dog or your cat, tell you the species, and also whether it's happy or sad or angry, etc. The more recent work we're looking into is in the area of, can you detect lameness in horses without having sensors attached to the body? And yes, short answer is yes, you can, by looking at the movement of the feet and the limbs, as well as the head, as well as the croup, the bum, basically. There is a certain pattern which will, in the movement of these, of the animal, which will let you know that it's lame or not. I thought I'd go a little bit deeper in one application of the work that we've been looking into, and this is in the area of a kind of a unique challenge in many ways, which is to do with feral cats. So feral cats are wild cats that have been released into the wild, or accidentally or deliberately, which are causing havoc, I guess you can say, with the Australian native species. The researchers that we work with are interested in knowing how many of them are out there. I mean, the cats are obviously not, they're difficult to find. They tend to be active at night. They tend to be quite secretive, and you will not see them very easily, etc. So what they do is they use camera traps. They use camera traps with some food on them. And when the cat comes to eat the food, a motion detection occurs. There's a thermal sort of picture with identifies a body coming to that table to eat the food on the table, and it will take a picture. And these run all around, well, Melbourne and Victoria. I guess I'll talk about where exactly these are in a little while. Based on that, then, the ecologists that we're working with have to manually classify these cats. Like, this is the same one that I've seen before, or this is a new one I've never seen before. And the way they do this is by looking at the markings. And all cats can have unique markings. It's not always as obviously unique, but this is the general challenge. So the researcher is looking at potentially hundreds of cats where they have, is this one I've seen before? And you can imagine how complicated that is. A, to name them, and then B, to say, have I seen this one before based upon all the ones I've looked at previously? It's a bit of a nightmare scenario. So the question we were tasked with is, can artificial intelligence and deep learning help here? So the camera traps were located in the Otway region of Melbourne, which is sort of south of Geelong, and in the Glenelg region in different forests. These little spots on the screen are the actual camera traps. So there are hundreds of them available, and they are set up, they run. When the images are taken, someone will go out and collect the data manually. We have a very mixed, and part of the challenge in deep learning, I guess, is getting the best quality data. And that, sometimes you have to deal with what you're dealt with. So you'll have pictures where you just capture the tail of the cat, or it's at nighttime, or it's a blurry image, or it's an overexposed images. And we're not dealing with hundreds of thousands of pictures of the same cat here, or tens of thousands, or even thousands. We're dealing with tens or dozens of images per cat, which causes challenges for the models to learn the features of cats that make that cat distinct from another cat. So what we generally do in this area to improve that is we use image augmentation. So we'll take the image, we'll rotate it, so it's the same cat, but now we have two images. Or we'll flip it horizontally, And so we have the same cat, but now we have 2 images. There's a range of processing that's typically done when you're doing augmentation. So you don't want a 10 megabyte image of a cat and a 5 kilobyte image of a cat. So all the images are resized to a certain form. And in total in this work, we had 4,226 images of 93 different cats. Reality was, though, many of these cats had maybe 1 or 2 images or less, just a very few, so that we couldn't really use them. So we put all of them into another, what we call a class, the thing that you're trying to identify and label as one of them, into an other. So we had 76 separate classes. So 75 unique cats and 1 bucket for all the other cats that we couldn't identify as because we didn't have enough data. We utilized other data sets when you're training the model. So Google ImageNet and Microsoft Coco are large databases of thousands of images which have been annotated, but neither of them focused on feral cats. But that you can use that kind of information to, say, looking at images of cats, for example, to train the models and identify how good your application is when it comes down to identifying the things that someone's labeled as a specific type of cat, for example. The actual amount of data we had on the different cats were for the different forests. So we have the Anya Forest and Mount Clay, Kabob and Hotspur, which are all the Glenelg sort of region in the west of Victoria. And then we had the cats that were in the Otway region. Some things to note here, the Otway region has many, many more cats. And you'll see that we have an average, a maximum of just over 80 cats. So this one is called Tabby Catsup. So the scientists we work with gave them random names, Tabby Swirl or Swirl Spicy or Swirl Skip or Swirl, etc. But you see we have some images of cats have a lot of data, others have very little data, maybe 30 images. And so we have what we call an unbalanced data set here. So we then use that data to train the models when we've explored multiple models here. I won't go into the details because of time, but we've looked at mask RCNN, fast RCNN. More recently, we're looking at YOLO, which is you only look once. These are multi-phase models. These are single-phase models where it will say, it doesn't have to identify the region of the image where the cat is to then say what kind of cat is in that region. It just does it all in one step. We're using the Spartan GPU cluster at the University of Melbourne, and it takes several hours for running and processing these data sets to train the model. Once the model was trained, we used external knowledge about the location. So for example, we made the assumption, which may or not be hold true, that the Hotspur cats could not possibly be mixed with the Otway region cats because they are far, far away. And we did the same thing for all of the for the cats, basically. So for the Hotspur region, we had a 1 in 8, I guess, chance of getting it right, and etc. Whereas in the Otway, we had a 1 in 50 or 60 chance of getting it right. And so just by random guessing which cat it might be, you get a certain score. And so the metric we typically are using in this area is called the mean average precision. So if you're making a prediction that this, I think I'm 52% confident or 99% confident it's this cat, that is what and then we validate that, we determine whether that actually was the right cat. And these numbers reflect the accuracy that we're getting as a result of this. If we take away the external knowledge, then the numbers change considerably. So you see that we have a range of diverse, some cats we can get perfectly, some cats we don't get very accurately at all. So this is the other bucket. So it's unsurprising that this one would not be as well identified, because this is the one that there are multiple cats in here that we can't always identify exactly. So more recent work we've been looking into has been applying YOLO, which is this the latest version of one of the models, YOLO version 5. And instead of separating the cats into different areas and using geographic information, we just put them into a large, all 76 cats in a single large bucket. And then we looked at how the accuracy of the models perform with augmentation and without augmentation. What we're doing right now is we're exploring how to optimally augment the data. So is it as important to flip or to change the contrast ratio or to zoom or to crop or to do a whole range of different things to increase the numbers of images? And which of those things results in the best possible results for the overall accuracy of the models you're getting out? So I have PhD students in that area right now. So, okay, so in this project or in this talk, I've spoken about applying deep learning. We've explored different presented different case studies. The one we focused on in particular was related to identifying feral cats. We achieved pretty good accuracy when it comes down to it, which is saving a lot of the time of the ecologist in manual labor in classifying these images. This work is just one part of one project which we're exploring in this area. I guess we have other projects with the Victorian government, DELP, the Department of Environment, Land, Water Planning, looking at bushfires and impact on biodiversity and things in this area. So, for example, can we identify chainsaw sounds for people illegally taking firewood, etc., etc.? And I guess that's the end of my talk. Thanks very much.